Most of the time, we think about scary things, scary stories, scary movies, things that give us nightmares. I don't think that we consider just how scary some of our video games are or have been. I, for one, find myself this year really missing scary video games. Part of that is I don't have too many games right now. I sold my Xbox a while back, and so I'm missing some video games, but scary games are kind of a dime a dozen. Now, before I say anything further, don't tell me anything about Five Nights at Freddy's. I haven't played it yet. I own a Mac, so it's going to be a while before I can actually play Five Nights at Freddy's. I fully intend to play it. I hear it's really scary, but don't spoil anything about me. I've actually had enough of it as it is spoiled for me. So I would definitely put that on my list of the scariest things I've ever seen as far as video games are concerned, just based on the one video of it I watched. But there's some other scary games on my list that probably aren't on too many other people's. I was one of the few people to actually own a Sega CD. Yeah, you're probably thinking I should go to a support group because Sega CD was not well known as a good console, but honestly, as a kid, I really thought it was cool. And there was the Jurassic Park Sega CD game that had a lot of point and click stuff, but you never knew when dinosaurs were going to jump out. And there was even a part where you were kind of looking around, and you heard a roar, and you turned around and you saw the T-Rex just in a stop motion or a full motion video. You saw the T-Rex just go across the screen, just kind of go across in the T-Rex paddock and then disappear behind some trees. Just seeing something like that was scary enough because you thought you were going to have to face him, and everything was first-person perspective. So that was pretty scary, and also when you headed up to the raptor area, you didn't know when those things were going to jump out. There was something pretty scary about that. There was also a game I rented a few times called Mansion of Hidden Souls, which was another type of point and click game that was first person, which many people probably found boring. And had I known that the entire game there's no way to die and that you don't really confront any enemies, then I probably would have thought it was boring too. But the entire game, you're walking through this mansion. Sorry, I just zippered up my shirt. You're walking through this mansion searching for your sister, and you have no idea what's going on. It's very quiet. There doesn't seem to be anyone there except for some butterflies that can talk. Yeah, that sounds like that would take the fear factor out. But there are some moments with some very scary parts, and there's even one really good jump scare where you go over to this painting that's supposed to show you where to go, and all of a sudden you see a picture of a laughing clown. And wow, as a kid, that really scared me. The other game series that I can talk about for a long time, but I'm going to try to keep this short, is Resident Evil. And man, do I miss how scary those games were. I actually played it in reverse. I played Resident Evil 3 Nemesis first, which made it the favorite game of mine in that series. For most people, that was their least favorite, but I guess it goes to show what happens if it's the first of its kind for you. So I did Resident Evil 3 first, and for the longest time, I still had nightmares of Nemesis chasing after me. That game, that entire series was pretty scary right up until Resident Evil 5 or 6. At that point, it stopped being survival horror and started being a shoot 'em up game that focused on accuracy of shots and ammo conservation. Well, okay, the whole entire series was about ammo conservation, but now it was really about having that one great shot off on whoever it was and ducking behind cover. Resident Evil 4 was kind of a change in pace too, and a change in tone, but I thought there was still enough horror elements. And one of the biggest ones, one of the ingredients that I think is really needed in horror games is a sense of foreshadowing. In Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and 4, you'd always read about some kind of creature that they had been experimenting on, or maybe you'd be reading someone's diary where they'd be talking about what they encountered, and you knew that sooner or later you were going to have to fight this monster, you were going to have to do something about it. You'd see pictures or you'd hear about it, and within some time you would eventually confront whatever the enemy was that they were talking about. And I don't feel like the fifth one, or especially not the sixth one, really had that. There is still a kind of hope for the series, I think, because Resident Evil 5 Gold had that extra game in it that explored what happened to Jill and Chris before the events of Resident Evil 5, where they go through yet another mansion, and it really does feel like the original Resident Evil games. Man, I wish they could bring those back. I wish they could bring back a lot of other scary games. And I know there's a lot of them that I haven't mentioned, and if you have your favorite scary games, please let me know. And if you're mad at me for not knowing all the other ones, I am familiar with Silent Hill, I am familiar with I Have No Mouth and I Must Speak, and all the other really popular scary games, even if I haven't played them. And if you're mad at me or you think I'm not a true gamer for not playing these games, it's because I'm not a true gamer. I don't really play video games that often anymore, but when I do play them, I get quite into them, and as we can see, they have a heavy impact on my subconscious. So let me hear from you. What are your scary games, and what do you recommend? If you've played Five Nights at Freddy's, don't tell me anything about it, but please tell me, is it as worth it as I hope it will be?